The waiting game. The tennis community, the nation, the world, all... Yes, you, Alex Hawke, the immigration minister under pressure to make a decision and bring the Novak saga to an end.
I feel quite embarrassed as an Australian athlete that's seen what this guy has done, for us. And, for the sport, I just don't think it's right how we're handling it.
I hope that a final decision will be announced soon. This uncertainty is not good for any of the stakeholders in this story.
But as for which way that decision should go, depends who you ask.
Don't throw him out. He is a tennis player. He's not politician. He is not a criminal. He is not murderer. He is just tennis player, the best in the world.
I mean, if he lied on his visa, then he should bugger off.
I think if the immigration minister does use it, it's an absolute disgrace. I think it's going to embarrass us as a country.
Novak today responding to claims he lied on his travel declaration, saying, "This was submitted by my support team on my behalf. My agent sincerely apologises for the administrative mistake." The tennis star also addressing the backlash over these photos, insisting he didn't receive his positive COVID result until after the event, but acknowledging an error of judgment in attending an interview the following day when he did know he was positive. New revelations casting a cloud over the test results themselves. Digital data suggesting Novak's result may have been manipulated as inconsistencies over the timing and result of his PCR test emerged. So as the scandals continue to roll in and the world continues, time is ticking for the world number one.
Well, joining us now is former Immigration Department Deputy Secretary Abul Rizvi. Abul, what's the hold-up here? Wouldn't the government want to rip the Band-Aid off this situation and just be done with it?
This is a hard one. There is no easy option here. Cancellation is difficult, and not cancelling is difficult. If I might just go through the processes in terms of cancellation. Let's assume the minister does proceed to cancel Mr Djokovic's visa. He would then have the cancellation notice taken by Australian Border Force, who usually dress in very, very dark uniforms and often carry guns, turning up to Mr Djokovic's hotel or on the tennis court, taking Mr Djokovic away from the tennis court, most probably in the glare of the world's media, to a detention centre where Mr Djokovic would remain whilst he sought any application for judicial or other review processes. That could well mean that Mr Djokovic is in detention in Melbourne whilst the Australian Open is ongoing.
So what can we read into the delay that's going on right now? What would be happening behind the scenes?
Well, behind the scenes on this issue, no public servant should be involved because at this point, I suspect all of the discussions are about the politics and the optics. What is the best way of presenting this to the Australian people such that the optics look favourable to the government? That would be a discussion going on between various ministers and the Prime Minister's office.
So there's some reporting tonight, Abul, that the minister is giving consideration to cancelling his visa on character grounds because of the discrepancies and errors in some of the documentation and the timing around his PCR tests and positive results before he got to Australia. Is that enough?
To cancel on character grounds, that sounds a little flimsy to me. A more likely consideration is that I understand under Serbian law, a contravention of the health orders can be subject to a jail sentence of up to 3 years. Now, the problem there is that Mr Djokovic has not yet been sentenced, so the government may well be jumping the gun if it wants to go down a character cancellation route.
And so is it then enough in this country if someone deliberately or mistakenly ticks the wrong box on an entry form to throw them out of the country?
It's enough to cancel the visa. Having cancelled the visa, you take them into detention. They then have appeal rights. And once they've exhausted those, then they can be removed from the country. Yes.
So the question I want to ask is, could this drag on long enough for us to see Novak play a game? Could it even be that they could wait until he's playing an Australian and then see if the Australian is losing and then call Border Force and send them on mid-match?
Wow, that is innovative thinking. I'm not sure whether the government's thought that through in that level of detail. There is no time limit for the minister to make his decision. He can make that decision in his own time. He could, in fact, wait months to make the decision if he wished. But I think that would be quite unfair to Mr Djokovic, given that he's trying to prepare for the Australian Open. I think the minister would be subject to quite some criticism if he delayed in that way.
So, Abul, if the government caves this time, does this whole case make it harder for it to uphold its tough border policy moving forward?
I think what's happened in this particular case is that we've had a really bad process that operated until the 5th of January. It then changed on the 6th of January. What it tells us is if we can implement an effective and efficient process whereby if people are applying to come to Australia and need to be vaccinated, we deal with that before we grant them the visa, before they can come into the country. Trying to deal with these sorts of issues after they've come into the country is really poor practice and runs against 30 years of immigration system development.
Meanwhile, that clock is ticking down to Monday when the Oz Open kicks off. Abul, as always, thanks so much for your time.
You're welcome.